Hi. I want to talk kind of briefly about being clocked. Um, and all that means is that someone identifies you as trans. Um, Cisgender person identifies you as trans. And when I say being clocked, I mean that there's a negative consequence once you're identified, um, where you become the victim of some sort of discrimination or violence or threats or intimidation, things like that. Um, Sorry. Um, so yeah, and so I've had that happen to me. Um, I've been basically chased out of a neighborhood that I used to live in. I've been intimidated in another neighborhood where I was living. And basically, the place I lived at 4 years ago, I, had to leave there because roommate was making all these threats. Um, yeah. And of course, we've heard of Elaine Nettles. She was a young woman in New York who was just walking down the street with some friends, and some guys identified her as trans. Well, first he catcalled her and, you know, whistle, blowing whistle, like whatever, however that goes, and ran up to her, I guess, to try to rap or something. And he identified her as trans, and he beat her to death with his bare hands. And so there's a lot of that that's going on. Um, a lot of trans women, particularly trans women of color, being murdered. And some of it, and a lot of it, I would say, is a result of being clocked. Just us trying to live our lives. And that's all I was trying to do. Like, one time I was just going to the store to buy some eggs, and these like young teens, a lot of them calling me faggot. This happened in 2000. I think it was 2014. You know, 6 years ago, and the thing that all of these incidents had in common was they were all from my own community, African American community. The people who perpetrated this, and the people who are basically murdering trans women of color are other people of color. And I read something somewhere several years ago on this topic, the topic of being clocked or being read. And what I read was that people from your own ethnicity or race are more able to see certain cues or whatever, that they can more easily clock you than someone from another race. I read that. I don't know if that's scientific. I don't know what that is. But it seems it's very curious or coincidental that in these 10 years, 99% of the times I've been clocked, it's been by people of color, other African Americans. And in these 10 years, I've only been clocked by somebody white one time. Is that a coincidence? I mean, Um, and the one time sticks, like when something only happens one time, of course it sticks out in your memory because it's so unusual. And I mean, I'm around white people a lot, you know. The neighborhood I live now is predominantly a white middle class suburban neighborhood. And 4 years, I've lived there for 4 years. Haven't been one problem. No one, because when I run, I don't look like this when you guys see me after I'm running. I look kind of beat down after I run, I don't know that I necessarily, the word pass or whatever after running. I mean, I don't know. I just like, I don't wear makeup. My hair is a mess. I'm all sweaty. But people are over and over and over and over again, just very encouraging. And that's the difference because when I was living basically in the hood, and I was running back then in 2013, 2014. I remember going on my first run in my new neighborhood, and I passed this playground running, and it was in the fall of maybe 2013. And there are these kids out there, they were teenagers playing flag football, and I'm just jogging, and some guy looked at me and yelled, "Oh my God, he is gay as shit!" Like, like look at that gay guy. Like the whole playground stopped, and everybody like looked at me like, "Oh my God, what neighborhood did I just move into?" that seeing me run would stop everybody from playing a flag football game to see me running. It's like be gawking at me, and then of course the other incidents that happened there, and the intimidation and being called faggot over and over and over again. I mean, it's like, and this is a 100% black neighborhood, and I'm in this predominantly white neighborhood, and all these words of encouragement. I hate to say it, but it's just, I mean, that's just the way it's been. What am I going to do? Um, so maybe it's true, but how? I don't know how the guy, they're playing in a playground, and I'm like 300 yards away, and look at the gay guy, how do you do? Is there some gender attribution that they can tell from that far away? Look, I don't know how that works. All I know is I'm in a situation now that is just so safe and so comfortable, and people are like encouraging, and I'm like an inspiration. They see it, So and there are some other African Americans that live in this neighborhood, and very encouraging as well, like just like everybody. So but so I don't know what it is. Yeah, what I read says that you can be identified more around your own race, as a trans woman because of whatever. So that makes me, I don't know. Does it mean I feel anxiety being around a lot of people who look like me? No, not really. I mean, after my boyfriend is black, but he knew, obviously he knew I was trans from day one, so because he found me on a trans dating site. That's how we met. Um, but when I'm in urban areas, I do feel more cautious, and that includes work. Because the neighborhoods I work in, some of my veterans, are the neighborhoods that chase me out, like where I was living. It's those types of neighborhoods. So when I'm at work, I try to have a lot of, I hate the word pass, because what does that really mean? But I try to look like as feminine and have as much feminine attributions as possible so that I'm not clocked. And the reason, because I don't want to be clocked at work. I don't want to be like so uncomfortable that I can't go into a neighborhood that I have to go into to meet my veterans, and I don't want to have to be fighting my way out of something. And it's not like I'm nervous to meet my veterans, because most of them are black. 90% of them are black males. Because I haven't had any trouble, and I think sometimes has to do with age, because a lot of the people who have intimidated or said things, negative stuff to me, have been more of the on the young side, people under 30. The guy who chased me out of the apartment where I was room for rent, he's probably in his 30s. I mean, um, but a lot of them, a lot of the people, the trans women who are being murdered, a lot of them are in their 20s. A lot of them. So there, people who are murdering them have been guys in their 20s. So it seems like it's a thing also, not just African American men, but young African American men. Like people who are like 40 and 50, that's the age group basically that are my veterans. I, don't feel much concern about my safety there. And I think the reason I brought this up is because, for the last year and a half, I've been working from either an office here or home on a computer, and I haven't met anybody. I have there's a whole rack of veterans that I haven't met in person, and so tomorrow I'm going to be meeting a veteran in person. Going to be taking him to a DMV office in the hood, basically, and not a really good part of DC. And it's not that I would say I'm concerned because I had to do this before the pandemic, and I got totally comfortable doing my job and not feeling anxiety, and I just had to be safe. Like I didn't work in the evenings. I worked during the daytime. I just was cautious of my surroundings, which you should be as a female anyway. And because the neighborhoods that I'm working in DC are some of the most violent neighborhoods. I mean, people get shot in those neighborhoods. One guy I was talking to just last night. He said that two people got shot. For some reason, the Veterans Administration has their transitional housing programs in the worst neighborhoods in DC. So veterans said two people got shot last night. Here's gunfire. So DC is not safe. So even though that nothing to do with me being trans, being in DC in the worst parts of DC can be a little hairy, as they say. But I'm comfortable. Like I said, I worked there before the pandemic. It's been a year and a half. So just getting back into that environment again, it's gonna. I guess there's a little anxiety just getting back into it again and meeting people and taking people to places, in areas of DC that's not the safest. So I've just been thinking about that because I gotta do that tomorrow, and it's back on. It's been a year and a half of sitting behind a computer. Now it's back on out there in the community again, and as a trans woman, you always gotta think safety first, and if you're gonna be clocked, it's probably gonna be in those neighborhoods. But you just I gotta do my job still. Um, so that's all I thought about bringing up being clocked, and like I said, I'm gonna be looking as feminine as possible. Not saying I'm gonna be showing this, like, then you never know. I don't know. It's funny because when I was with the Washington Post reporter, she saw how I dressed, like I was doing rocking cleavage or whatever. And she said, "Oh, why do you dress like that?" And I said, "I think it's actually it's in the article. It's something like I'd rather be admired than called faggot, something like that." I said, but she didn't put that. She didn't like obviously write that in the Washington Post, but it was like, if someone is gonna say like, I'd rather just be anonymous and just walking through. No one make a big deal out of me. But if they are going to make a big deal out of me, I want to be because I'm pretty and feminine versus them thinking, wants to throw a gay slur my way or a transphobic slur my way. And so I really try to present a certain, particularly in the city, I try to present a certain way because if you have been clocked and been intimidated and been chased out of neighborhoods and chased out of your home, you have no right to judge me at all because you haven't you haven't been where I've been. Literally chased out of your home. Who who does that happen to? But anyway, so I've just been thinking about that, getting back out there in the city. Part of my job and no longer a slave to a computer. I do want to bring up kind of one funny story to end. And this was the time, like I said, I've only been clocked by a white person in 10 years, one time, negatively clocked. One time in 10 years. Um, and so it sticks out because it's the one time. So I was in Richmond, Virginia with a friend. I was attending some event there, some gala event, and I was with I drove up there with this cisgender white woman. And we had a good time at the event. And afterwards, we were going to like have a nightcap. Is that like a sports bar type deal? And her car was parked in the garage, and her cell phone had died, so she wanted to go down to her car with the charger and recharge her cell phone battery. So I said, okay. I said, I'll sit here. I was sitting there, and some drunk white girl came up to me. She must have been like 22 or something. She came up to me and said out of the blue, "Are you a man or a woman?" And you're sitting there. I'm sitting there. I was like shell shocked because I wasn't expecting that. Like what? Like a stranger coming to me and saying that? And this was like 6 years ago, maybe. Anyway, so I didn't even know what to say. I just said, I'm a woman, of course. Why are you even coming up to me asking? She says, I'm like, I don't think so. She walked away. So I'm sitting there, like, now I'm thinking about what to do. All of a sudden, my safety and security feels threatened. I'm saying, do I leave? Uh, a minute later, she comes up again, and she brings this black girl with her. Some other young woman. I guess they're drinking together all at one table. And she says, this isn't a woman, this is a man. And the black girl looks at me. She didn't say anything. She just looks at me like suspicious. And now I'm thinking, this, what do you do in that environment? What do you do in that situation? Like, fight these women? Women fight, the first thing they do is grab your hair and pull that. It's like, oh, I didn't know what to do. And then I'm thinking, I need to get out of here because this is not looking good. Um, so I'm thinking about getting my stuff, like trying to pay for my drink, and before I know it, like 2 minutes later, she comes, and I said to myself, if this bitch comes over here one more time, I'm gonna like curse her out of something. I want to fight her. I don't want to up in jail in Richmond, Virginia, because they probably put me in a man's jail. Well, 2 minutes later, she does come back one more time, and she brings a guy with her this time, and it's a white guy. And I feel intimidated now because now there's a man involved. But here's the funny thing. He didn't know why she asked him over. And I got this concerned look on my face, and she says, don't you think that's a man? And the guy looked at her with the expression like, what the fuck did you bring me here for? And he just he stormed off, pissed off at her for trying to get him in a situation. And went back to the table. He's like, curse her the fuck out. It's like, and then now she's totally defeated. Like, I didn't have to kick her ass. Like, he's like, and so there was no more coming to the table. Then my friend arrived, and I'm mad now because I got my, chutzpah, whatever that word is, up. And I'm like, and I'm saying, and this bitch over there, da da da. And my friend ready to fight. And she doesn't even look over anymore. It's like, so that's kind of a funny story because that's my Karen story. Because it's like, that's the only time that's happened in 10 years. So, it definitely sticks out. So, anyway, so that's it. That's that. So, there you go. Bye.